The body of a woman is a temple that cannot be conquered. It is revealed. This phrase comes from the writings of the southern priestesses. Some words are not meant to be understood logically, but felt, like a shiver running through the body. They carry hidden messages like codes. This is one of them. The G-spot lies on the ceiling of the portal. It doesn't sound anatomical, technical, or medical. It sounds magical. And when something sounds magical, it's because it protects a secret buried under centuries of noise, shame, and misinformation. Today, I ask you to do something. Set aside everything you think you know about sexuality, anatomy, desire, or pleasure. This chapter isn't for those simply chasing stimulation, but for those who sense that behind pleasure there is a doorway, a sacred doorway that only opens when the keys are not hands, but energy, a threshold that doesn't respond to force, but to presence, a secret passage that doesn't lead to orgasm, but to another dimension. For centuries, female sexuality has been treated as a mystery to be controlled. Science studied it, religion feared it, patriarchy minimized it, and industry distorted it. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. Inside a woman's body is a place not of this world, a point that, when awakened, not only gives pleasure but dissolves time, logic, and self. That point is not where you expect it, not on the surface, not on the map, because the map was wrong. Today we'll draw a new one, or rather remember it, because the female body is a temple, and like every sacred temple, it has a portal. In that portal lies a ceiling, and in that ceiling a key that vibrates, a point that is not touched. It is reached. This chapter may challenge you, unsettle you, move you, lift you, because we will not speak of sex. We will speak of energy, sacred geometry, forgotten archetypes. And if you stay with me to the end, something inside you will open. Not because of these words, but because the code within you will recognize what was never explained, only felt. Subscribe now if you sense this is more than a video. It is a calling. Here, we don't just inform, we awaken memory. And if you know someone ready to open that portal, share this chapter. Because what is shared with intention activates the sacred. Welcome to the temple. The ritual begins now. The female body is sacred architecture, never meant to be reduced to intellect. It is a star map, an ancestral code carved into living flesh, capable of opening dimensions when awakened with the right vibration. But for centuries, society has tried to shrink it to a biological function, predictable and measurable, as if divinity could be located with a ruler or GPS. The truth is, no man has ever found the G-spot without first learning to see with the soul. It is not a hidden button between folds. It is a threshold. And like all sacred thresholds, it opens only when one is worthy. From tantric schools in Kashmir to the temples of Isis in Egypt, it was known that female pleasure is a portal of spiritual power. The priestesses did not simply offer sex, they offered activation. Their womb was an altar, their throat a channel, and the so-called G-spot, mistranslated from Grafenberg's and misunderstood ever since, was never just a place, it was a state. A state reached only when energy resonated in complete surrender. Not lust, not technique, but vibration, tuning. And here lies the mystery of the portal's ceiling. If the body is a temple, the portal is the entrance, and its ceiling is the highest point, the boundary between physical and mystical. It is here that the miracle happens, if the approach is not forced. The ceiling of the portal is invisible yet sensitive. It activates only when the energy that enters is pure. It is not in manuals, not taught by gurus, not found in porn, because it cannot be taught, only lived. And when it awakens, time stops. The body does not react, it responds. There are no contractions, but expansion. No fake moans, but tremors in the soul. She does not feel something done to her. She feels something opening within. This moment is what wise cultures revered as the divine orgasm, when the human and the celestial merge into one point and separation disappears. Why was this hidden? Why turned into a myth? Because female pleasure is subversive. It awakens, empowers, breaks systems. If women remembered the power of this portal, the world would no longer be ruled by the mind, but by energy. Ancient temples, sacred geometries, and even the design of reality itself echo this truth. The G-spot is the secret dome where truth vibrates, not of flesh, but of symbols, energy, memories. And it reveals itself only when one enters with reverence, as into sacred ground. And here is the most astonishing part. This sacred design is mirrored in real temples. Many ancient sanctuaries were built to reflect the female body in meditation. Entrances, corridors, sacred chambers, all forming a hidden map. At the highest part of the entrance, the ceiling of the portal, architects carved messages, not decorations. Codes meant to awaken the soul through the body. What we call ornaments were in fact vibrations frozen in stone. Rosettes, the flower of life, mandalas, stars, all pointed to the same center, the place where the universe converges. That same center awakened in the female body when the G-spot, the invisible ceiling of the portal, is touched not by fingers, but by energy. The ancients knew architecture and anatomy were never separate. Both are containers of the soul. Both follow sacred proportions. The golden ratio, the Fibonacci spiral, fractal geometry, all of these appear in the structure of the womb, the inner ear, the cerebral cortex, and yes, even in the G-zone. But don't expect mainstream science to tell you this. If they admitted that this point, when activated with the right frequency, could open a state of expanded consciousness, they'd also have to admit that pleasure isn't just a luxury, it's a tool for awakening. And that's where things get dangerous for the system, because a woman who has touched that place will no longer obey. She won't settle for mediocre relationships, soulless work, or senseless rules. Her energy expands, and with it, her vision of the world. She stops being just a citizen. She becomes a guardian of portals, and that is unacceptable to those who seek control. Think of the vaults of cathedrals, where light pours in from above and merges with stone. That same symbol lives in the female body, the highest part of the entrance, where energy, if it enters gently and without judgment, triggers a wave through the entire system. That is the G-spot, a spark of light, an energetic lever, an ancient code designed not by thought but by vibration. So why was it forgotten? Why do millions of women still not know the power within their own bodies? Because the knowledge was stolen and twisted into taboo, into pornography, into superficial pleasure. But the soul never forgets, and that's why so many women today feel something awakening inside without knowing why. It's no coincidence that in the oldest myths of Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, and the Americas, the deepest spiritual initiations came through women, not only through their bodies, but through the hidden power of their portals. Women who were not just lovers, but guardians of thresholds, priestesses, healers, guides. Women who knew their own bodies like a star map and who understood that in the ceiling of their inner temple, where the visible merges with the invisible, true rebirth begins. The G-spot is not just about pleasure, it is about access. Access to memories, visions, trances, ancestral cries you didn't know you carried. Access to versions of yourself silenced for centuries. And once that access opens, nothing is ever the same. Tantric schools taught that orgasm is not the end. It is the threshold. The ceiling of the portal was seen as the energetic space where the soul could leave the body without dying, only to return with wisdom. Women who mastered this were called dakinis, sibyls, medicine women. The men who understood it were not just lovers, they were alchemists. They knew that touching that point didn't just awaken pleasure, it awakened frequency. A frequency that could heal, transform, or destroy, depending on intention. Now think about this. What happens if that point is touched by someone who doesn't know what they're doing? What happens if the portal is entered without respect, without awareness, without soul? We see the result today. Women disconnected, blocked, lacking desire, living on autopilot. Not because their bodies are broken, but because the portal was violated. The ceiling of the portal is sensitive to the soul that approaches. If someone comes in haste, with hunger, with ego, the portal closes. And not only does it close, it shields itself. That is why some women feel pain when touched. That is why many cry after sex without knowing why. Because their body remembers the violation. The temple was entered without permission, and the ceiling of the portal did not open. It cracked. But there is hope. When that space is honored, when it is made sacred again, the body speaks in another language. Not words, but pulses, tremors, visions. That is true initiation. The moment the G-spot stops being an anatomical location and becomes a key to remembering who we truly are. Because when a woman consciously crosses that threshold, she returns with a power that cannot be explained. And yes, the modern world fears that power. But you were not born to obey the modern world. You were born to remember what was taken from you, and there is a way back. In the next act of this story, you will discover why the ceiling of the portal also exists within you, even without a uterus. You don't need one to hold a portal because the G-spot is not just anatomy. It's a frequency that lives in every body that connects with sacred energy. In men, it isn't in the flesh, but in presence. Yes, men have a G-spot too, but it cannot be found with fingers. It awakens when a man stops trying to arrive, when he lets go of the chase and simply is. In Tantra, the lingam, the male organ, is not a tool of pleasure but an energetic pendulum. Guided by ego, it only discharges. Guided by the awakened soul, it becomes something else entirely. The male G-spot is not physical. It appears when a man becomes a channel instead of a conqueror, when he merges with the female body or with his own inner feminine energy, without the urge to dominate, without expectation, without role. When his energy rises through his spine instead of stagnating in the pelvis. When he stops chasing orgasms and starts discovering portals. At that moment, the ceiling of the portal is no longer outside. It's in his chest, his throat, his crown. It activates through the same alchemy as the female G-spot. Presence, awareness, surrender. True union doesn't happen in the genitals. It happens in that invisible ceiling, where two souls meet and forget they are two. And that is what the system fears we will remember. Because a humanity that rediscovers its G-spot, not as an organ but as an energetic key, is a humanity that cannot be controlled. That's why they distorted everything. They taught us to love in haste, to penetrate without permission, to ejaculate without intention, to touch without seeing, to kiss without being present. They taught us that pleasure is biology, when in truth it is spirituality. A real orgasm awakened from the ceiling of the portal, whether in a woman or a man, does not put you to sleep. It wakes you up. And that awakening cannot be bought, cannot be faked, cannot be forced. It happens only when two bodies recognize themselves as temples, opened by the same vibration. She is the guardian of the portal. He is the keeper of the sacred fire. Together they activate an invisible field that can break old patterns, release memories, and give birth to new realities. Now you know the G-spot lives in the ceiling of the portal. But that ceiling is not only in the female body, it's also in your gaze, your gesture, your pause, your breath. In surrender, you don't need to chase it. Just remember what it feels like when there's no judgment, no rush, no need to possess. And there, in that exact moment, the portal opens on its own. Now that you know, you can't unsee it. Because this isn't a story about sex. It's a story about energetic memory, about temples that walk with legs and beat with hearts, about codes carved into skin, into stone, into sky. The G-spot is an ancient frequency that awakens when the body remembers what the soul has always known. That remembrance can arrive in a sigh, a glance, a vibration, the moment you stop touching to take and instead touch to open. When a woman is touched from that place, her body becomes a field of vibration. She doesn't just feel pleasure. She releases memories, transforms energy, resets timelines. And if this can happen to one, imagine what would happen if millions remembered. The ceiling of the portal is not just an intimate zone. It's a symbol, an altar, a forgotten code hidden from us, out of fear that we might truly awaken. And maybe all along, every time we searched for love, passion, or connection, what we were really searching for was that, the place where matter surrenders and the soul rises. That place is the G-spot. That instant is the ceiling of the portal. And once you cross it, whether from within or from without, there is no going back, only expansion. If you feel this message is not just a video, but a key to something that's already alive inside you, then activate it. Subscribe to this channel because here we do more than inform. We open portals. Leave me a comment if you've ever felt this kind of connection. You don't need to explain it with words. Energy is enough. Share this chapter with someone you feel is ready to remember, because what is forgotten in silence is restored in community. And remember, the system fears those who feel deeply, but we did not come here to fit in. We came here to ignite. Until the next chapter. Is it okay to masturbate? That question, which sounds so simple, has been tangled up in shame, dogma, and silence for centuries. But when a student asks it to a mystic like Sadhguru, the answer that comes back isn't about morality or medicine. It's about a deeper energetic truth most people aren't ready to hear. In our culture, talking about masturbation still makes people squirm. To some, it sounds sinful. To others, it feels liberating. For many, it's just a punchline. But in the unseen world, in that realm where energy moves, where thoughts vibrate and actions leave a mark in your aura, orgasm isn't just a physical release. It's a raw transfer of power, a shift or a loss, a doorway that can either open you up or close you down. Sadhguru is clear. Masturbation isn't good or bad in itself, but there's a trap. The real issue isn't the act, it's the lack of awareness behind it. If you don't understand what you're giving away when you masturbate, you can't understand what you're losing. And semen, reduced by science to sperm and protein, was for thousands of years seen as a sacred nectar. Ancient tantric texts call it ojas, the fluid of life. Sages described it as an alchemical elixir that could nourish the soul or be burned up as fuel for craving. Today, with free porn, non-stop stimulation, and constant temptation, masturbation has turned into an automatic, even compulsive habit. What was once sacred ritual is now routine. What once inspired respect is now brushed aside. Energy slips away, willpower weakens, and the soul falls quiet. Have you ever noticed how, after an aimless session, a strange emptiness can wash over you? That moment of release can be followed by sadness, fatigue, or disconnection. It's not guilt or punishment, it's simple vibrational cause and effect. You let your spark go with no direction. This isn't about judging you, it's about showing you something. Pleasure isn't your enemy, desire isn't your prison, masturbation isn't the problem. The problem is not realizing you're playing with sacred fire. This is about seeing desire through a lens beyond the body. Sadhguru opened the door. We're going to step through it. And what we'll find isn't just about sex, it's about energy, awareness, and awakening. Stick around to the end, and you'll see why the system wants you to ejaculate without soul, and how you can turn that act into a channel for creative power. This isn't something most psychologists or priests will tell you. Only someone searching for awakening dares to face this. When a student asked Sadhguru if masturbation was a spiritual problem, the room froze. Some expected a moral lecture, others a traditional sermon. Instead, they got something more unsettling, a simple-sounding reply that carried a hidden code for those who could read between the lines. Sadhguru didn't say yes or no. He said something far more powerful. There's nothing wrong with masturbation, but if it becomes compulsive, you're breaking something inside yourself. That was the code. He wasn't talking about the body, he was talking about your inner life. He wasn't speaking of guilt, he was speaking of compulsion. And if you understand spiritual language, you know that compulsion is the absence of inner freedom. He explained that anything done without awareness makes you a slave. And when masturbation becomes automatic, it not only wears down your body, it drains the energy you could use for something greater. Energy that doesn't come back. Energy you can't see, but you can feel. In yogic tradition, semen is more than a fluid. It's concentrated life force. It's said that creating a single drop requires the transformation of 40 drops of blood. That energy can create life, or if wasted, can drain your vitality. In deeper yoga paths like brahmacharya, conserving sexual energy, not by repression but by transformation, can lift your consciousness. The body stops living for pleasure and starts living for expansion. But be careful, Sadhguru doesn't preach forced abstinence. In fact, he warns against repression because it breeds dark, twisted energy. What he asks for is far harder, total presence. And here's where things get hidden. Have you ever wondered if someone or something wants you permanently stuck in compulsion? Why do you think masturbation is so constantly promoted, normalized, and encouraged today? Because pleasure without awareness is profitable and dangerous. Sadhguru leaves the door cracked open. We're going to walk through it. Because what the yogi implies, without saying it outright, is that every unconscious sexual act leaks spiritual power, creates an energetic fracture. And if we connect that with what the ancients knew and what modern forces encourage, a deeper question comes up, the one no one wants to ask. What if the real enemy isn't desire, but forgetting who you are when you desire? In the next section, we'll explore this sacred loss, semen as an energetic, spiritual, and symbolic essence. Stick around, because from here, we're going beyond the surface into the hidden chambers of sexual energy. Where science sees fluid, the soul sees essence. Most people hear the word semen and think of a simple biological byproduct, functional, physical, ordinary. But ancient cultures saw it differently. To them, semen was a sacred essence that held much more than sperm. It carried life, will, power, and spiritual memory. In yogic tradition, it's called ojas, the body's quintessence, not just fluid, but the crystallization of vitality. The ancients said it took 40 drops of blood to make a single drop of semen. That might not be an exaggeration if you understand that the body produces semen through a complex energetic process involving the liver, spinal cord, brain, and nervous system. When you ejaculate, you're giving away energy from your entire system. There's something deeper here. Semen doesn't just hold biological charge, it carries energetic information. Think of it like a vibrational USB drive. It stores frequencies, emotions, even fragments of intention. When you release it without awareness, you release those too. When it's done compulsively, that energy shatters. When it's done with presence, it can be transformed. That's why many tantric traditions taught not to ejaculate during sexual practice, not as repression or enforced chastity, but because they knew that holding that energy inside creates mental clarity, emotional resilience, and spiritual growth. Taoist masters spoke of drawing sexual energy up to the brain. Yogis spoke of burning it in the inner fire to awaken kundalini. By contrast, constant unconscious ejaculation was seen as turning on a sacred faucet and letting it drip until you're drained. Sound familiar? Sadhguru touches on this when he says, frequent purposeless ejaculation wears something down inside you. He's not threatening, he's making an energetic observation. Across traditions, sages gave the same warning. If you can't master your seed, you can't master your life. And there's another layer. If semen holds spiritual charge, what happens when it's released under the influence of pornography, fear, anxiety, or a deep sense of emptiness? Then it's not just energy lost, it's energy programmed. Orgasm actually creates a brief, altered state of consciousness. In that moment, the subconscious opens wide. If the moment is clouded by artificial images, heavy emotions, or inner disconnection, those get imprinted, becoming patterns that replay over and over. But when the same act is done as a ritual with intention, semen can literally be turned into light. In the next section, we'll look at why modern masturbation, far from being sexual freedom, is an energetic trap built to keep your vibration low. When you get aroused without soul, someone else collects your energy. Modern masturbation isn't what it used to be. It's no longer natural, intimate, or sacred. It's been turned into a ritual designed to make you give away your most precious resources, your attention, your energy, your essence without realizing it. Sound extreme? Think about it. Every time someone masturbates in front of a screen, they're not really alone. They might believe they are, but in reality, they're being tracked, measured, and influenced. The biggest free porn sites aren't just about sex. They're run by tech giants collecting millions of biometric markers, behavioral patterns, and neurological signals. Every click, every video, every second spent building arousal is mapped out so algorithms can perfect the most addictive content possible. And it's not just about addiction, it's about programming. In that moment, you're at your most vulnerable. Your energetic field opens, your mind disconnects from higher awareness, and images, emotions, and codes enter that aren't yours. You don't notice it, but you're being loaded with heavy, dense frequency. Today's pornography isn't designed to free you. It's designed to drain you. They call it pleasure, but it's really an invisible contract. You give away your inner fire in exchange for a fleeting escape. Like any drug, you want to do it again and again. Here's the darker truth. Every unconscious orgasm is a surrender of power. Every automatic session trains you to consume instead of create. Every stimulus that comes from outside breaks your connection to your real creative energy. The result? Emotional exhaustion, trouble bringing ideas to life, lack of focus, and a sense of emptiness disguised as desire. Coincidence? Or is there a real push to keep people compulsively masturbating? A man who ejaculates daily without awareness loses the drive to build something meaningful. A person who links sexual energy only to escape can't awaken. That's why it's offered for free, because it's not really free. And here's the harsh part. While you're giving away your energy, others are learning to transform theirs, and those are the ones who rise. Tantra says it. Taoism says it. Sadhguru hints at it. Sexual energy is your most powerful fuel. You can spend it, or you can transform it into vision, presence, creativity, and connection. But to do that, you have to step out of the trap and face your desire. Now we'll look at how to turn that energy into sacred fire, how to stop losing it and start raising it. If this resonates with you, stay with it. You're not lost, you're remembering. Here's the truth we have to face. Desire isn't the enemy. Masturbation isn't the enemy. The real problem isn't the fire. It's not knowing how to tend it without getting burned. From a spiritual perspective, sex isn't a sin. It's an energetic portal. An orgasm, far from being just relief, is a moment of expansion, ego release, and the opening of your vibrational field. The real question isn't should you masturbate, it's are you doing it from awareness or from emptiness? Because compulsive masturbation is born from stress, loneliness, disconnection, boredom, and old emotional wounds. It's a temporary comfort that never truly fills you. Each time you do it that way, the soul steps back a little more, and sexual energy, instead of lifting you, pulls you down. Conscious masturbation, on the other hand, is a ritual, an intimate ceremony where the goal isn't release but connection. Tantra, Taoism, and the deeper teachings of yoga describe self-pleasure as a path of transformation. Slow, mindful breathing, moving energy upward, visualizing it flowing to the heart and the third eye, being fully present in the body without external images, holding a clear intention, not just pleasure, but transformation. When you do that, you're not masturbating in the modern sense. You're practicing inner sexual magic, gathering the energy that used to leak away and channeling it toward what you want to grow. And here's where the real miracle happens. The energy you used to waste emptying yourself becomes vision, clarity, creativity, and intuition. You start noticing more strength to make things happen, more charisma, more natural magnetism, more ability to hold on to what used to slip away. Sadhguru says it quietly, but his eyes say it loud. All the energy you burn up compulsively is the same energy you could use to become extraordinary. That's why the system doesn't want you to realize this, because a person who transforms their inner fire refuses to live asleep, refuses to be manipulated, refuses to be distracted. What if every desire was actually a message from your soul asking you to reconnect? What if, instead of rushing to release, you stayed with the energy long enough to hear what it's trying to tell you? Next time the urge hits, ask yourself one thing: am I looking for pleasure or am I looking for presence? If you can stand in the fire without running, that same fire will remake you. This isn't about denying desire, it's about turning it into light. Stick around, because what comes next is for people who refuse to live half alive. The closing truth, the real why, is a message that could give you back power you didn't even know you'd lost. We live in a time that laughs at the sacred, a time that's turned the body into a release machine, the soul into a throwaway code, and sex into cheap entertainment. But masturbation, that seemingly private, invisible, harmless act, isn't neutral. Every time you do it, you choose a direction, toward emptiness or toward purpose. It's not about morality, repression, or religion. It's about energy. When that energy is wasted without awareness, it doesn't just lower your frequency, it opens doors. Yes, doors on an emotional, mental, and energetic level. Through them slip fatigue, brain fog, apathy, dullness, and a loss of magnetism. What if what you've been calling depression is really your soul crying out for the fire it's lost? What if every pointless ejaculation is a tiny energetic suicide? The ancients knew it. The tantrikas knew it. The alchemists knew it. And the engineers of today's system know it too. That's why they program you to keep doing it. Because someone connected to their sexual essence, their inner fire, their seed, that person is dangerous to the system. That's why what Sadhguru says is so powerful. The seed isn't just physical. It's a form of Shakti, a source of ojas, an antenna that connects dimensions. You decide whether to use that antenna to reach the heavens or to empty yourself into the void. So no, masturbation isn't bad, but it's not neutral either. It's a sacred act that's been stripped of its meaning, and that's where the danger lies. When ritual turns into habit, the soul falls asleep. And when the soul sleeps, someone else takes your place. So before the next time, ask yourself, am I filling up or emptying out? Am I honoring my fire or putting it out? Only you can answer that. And if this lit something inside you, even a tiny spark, you're not the same person who started reading. That's already a beginning. If it stirred something deep, stick around. Not for me, for you. Because what we're sharing here isn't content, it's alchemy. What if I told you that in your kitchen sits a small fragment of ancient power? Not a crystal, not a symbol carved in stone, but something far humbler, often overlooked and forgotten among the spices, yet holding a secret of fire. I'm talking about the clove. At first glance, it's just a dried flower bud, hardened by time. But for those who know the hidden art of plants, the old herbalists, silent alchemists, sacred physicians of the East, and shamans of the forests, this little clove is more than a seasoning. It's an energetic key, a spark of plant wisdom locked inside. For centuries, it's been called many things. The awakening of the breath, the spear of digestive fire, the sentinel of the aura. Why? Because behind its strong aroma and intense flavor is a powerful vibration that touches both the body and the spirit. Its pointed shape, like a ceremonial dagger, hints at its purpose: to pierce what's dense, cut away what's stagnant, and purify from the inside out. And what happens when you chew 2 cloves a day? Modern science will talk about its antiseptic, antioxidant, and pain-relieving properties. It will say it freshens your breath, supports digestion, and helps regulate blood sugar. But that's only the surface. What most people don't know is that chewing these little guardians with intention, presence, and ritual can open inner gateways, paths to a more awakened, vibrant energy. This video is a deep dive, a journey between the physical and the spiritual, exploring what really happens when you make this a daily practice. It's not about superstition or empty folk cures, but about an ancient alchemical tradition that's survived the test of time. We'll look at its origins and symbolic meaning in ancient cultures, its energetic effects on the body's systems, and its direct influence on awareness, intuition, and vibrational cleansing, and how you can start this path with just 2 cloves a day. So open your senses wide, because what you're about to discover won't be found in modern books. It's encoded in the wisdom of plants and in your willingness to hear what's not spoken but felt. Throughout history, plants have been much more than food or medicine. For ancient peoples, every root, leaf, and flower was a living being, alive with spirit, wisdom, and will. They weren't just ingredients. They were sacred allies. And among all these plant allies, few have been as mysterious yet revered as the clove. Its roots trace back to the Moluccas, the Spice Islands, where volcanoes whisper to the sea and the air is rich with the perfume of trees. There, cloves weren't just a trade commodity. They were sacred offerings used in purification rites, funerals, and ceremonies honoring the gods of air and fire. In Hindu temples, Ayurvedic sages used them in secret formulas to ignite Agni, the digestive fire, not just as a physical process, but as the spiritual flame that transforms matter into consciousness. In Taoist tradition, cloves were used to clear stagnant qi from the organs. Arab alchemists, who called it al-Qurunful, credited it with awakening nafas, the sacred breath that connects humans to the divine. And it wasn't just mystics who revered it. In medieval Europe, cloves were kept in the hidden apothecaries of witches and herbalists, not as a poison but as a shield against heavy energies and low vibrations. Burned as incense, sprinkled at a threshold, or chewed in silence before a vision, it was said to protect the aura and expand intuition. Its shape, like a tiny stake, gave it magical meaning. The nail that holds the worlds together, the earthly and the spiritual, the dense and the subtle. Chewing it turned the mouth into a sanctuary of fire and fragrance, a channel for spirit's medicine to enter the temple of the body. In many African cultures, its role went beyond the physical. It was offered in rituals to open spiritual pathways, clear the mind, and seal sacred agreements. In traditional Chinese medicine, its warm, penetrating aroma was used to awaken dormant yang, revive inner will, and clear mental fog. Over time, its sacred use faded, replaced by the ordinary and the culinary, until it was nearly forgotten. But today, some are remembering. People who chew not for taste, but for intention. People who seek not instant results, but a deeper connection to the earth's ancient codes. When you chew a clove, you're not just using a spice. You're awakening a contained intelligence. Like breaking an ancient seal, its power releases in your mouth like a spark of subtle fire. But what's really happening inside you? First, we have to understand something essential. The human body isn't just flesh and bone. It's an energetic temple with layers vibrating at different frequencies: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. Each responds to substances, sounds, symbols, and to plants. When clove enters the mouth, it activates three main centers. First, the oral fire, the power of speech and intention. It all starts on the tongue, which doesn't just shape words, but reality itself through sound. Clove's sharp, penetrating taste is no accident. In energy medicine, anything that stimulates the tongue's nerve endings activates the heart, stomach, and spleen meridians, creating a microcircuit that opens the inner channels of communication. This tells the brain not just to make saliva, but to enter a state of alert presence. Something shifts. A small flame lights up, like a torch in the mind, clearing mental cobwebs, sharpening perception, and pulling you into the moment. Second, digestive alchemy, the purifying fire in the solar plexus. As the clove's oils and essences travel down, their warmth reaches the body's center, the hara, the seat of will, action, and transformation. Here, clove guards the digestive fire, rekindling agni so food, emotions, and experiences can be digested fully. Without this fire, everything stagnates. With clove, what's dormant stirs, and what's blocked begins to move. Third, the subtle field, vibrational cleansing and protection. Beyond the physical body lies the aura, an electromagnetic field that interacts with the world around you, absorbing or repelling energies. Clove, with its warm vibration, expands and strengthens this field. Some liken it to a golden shield of fire, an etheric flame that dissolves stagnant energies, obsessive thoughts, and heavy presences. People who use it daily often notice improvements not just in physical vitality, but in emotional clarity, the ability to stay focused, centered, and less affected by outside influences. And here's where the real mystery begins. The more consistent the practice, the deeper the impact. It doesn't just cleanse you, it reshapes you, as if clove carries an ancient cellular memory that connects directly with your energy body, reminding it of its true nature and purpose. Chewing 2 cloves a day isn't a fad, it's a ritual, a silent exchange between you and the intelligence of a plant that has walked alongside humanity for untold ages. In this meeting point between the physical and the subtle, a new possibility opens, the reigniting of the sacred inner fire that's been dimmed by distraction, excess, and spiritual forgetfulness. In the world of sacred plants, some make their presence known loudly, others in whispers, and a rare few in a tone only those with a refined inner ear can hear. Clove is one of the latter, subtle yet precise, humble yet carrying the strength of a guardian. We've seen how it works in both the physical and energetic bodies, but now we step into an unseen realm, the hidden alchemy of clove. When chewing 2 cloves a day becomes a conscious habit, done with intention, presence, and openness, effects begin to emerge that conventional science can't fully explain. One of the most intriguing is its influence on the higher nervous system. Many mystics believe its essential oil carries a warm, penetrating vibration that stimulates the pineal and pituitary glands. In many traditions, these glands, linked to the third eye chakra, are regarded as inner eyes, gateways to higher perception. Those who combine slow clove chewing with deep meditation often report entering altered states of awareness, experiencing lucid dreams, and receiving symbolic visions more easily. not through hallucination, but because clove lifts mental fog, clears blocked thought patterns, and allows higher light to enter. This isn't just mental clarity, it's vibrational vision, the ability to perceive truths that arrive not through sight, but through intuition. In many ancient cultures, clove was said to cast out demons, not as superstition, but as a metaphor for psychic cleansing. These demons were repetitive thoughts, trapped emotions, and destructive habits embedded in the emotional body. When you introduce clove's vibration daily and do so consciously, its fire rises from the stomach to the throat, slowly burning away invisible chains that keep you tied to the past. Some days this feels like relief, others like confronting what you've hidden from yourself. Both are part of the process. Clove doesn't numb, it awakens. Historical records even tell of initiations where clove was used to prepare for shadow rituals, in which the initiate had to face their deepest wound to be reborn. Every human being carries an energetic signature, a kind of vibrational fingerprint that travels with them everywhere. This imprint is made up of thoughts, emotions, habits, and cellular memories. With repeated contact, clove can begin to reshape this imprint, almost as if its fire is writing new patterns on the hidden parchment of your aura, freeing you from heavy frequencies and helping you vibrate higher, clearer, and more harmoniously. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, but its consistency is its strength. 2 cloves a day, no more, no less. You could call it an alchemical microdose for spiritual transformation. In a culture hooked on excess, dramatic solutions, and quick fixes, clove is like a quiet teacher. It reminds us that real change happens in the small, the steady, in rituals carried out without show. Chewing 2 cloves a day is like lighting a small candle on the altar of your soul. Day by day, that candle reveals what was hidden, and in its light, you rediscover yourself. In a world overflowing with noise, methods, and promises of instant healing, simplicity can seem too plain, even naive. But it's often in simplicity that the deepest power resides, and clove is living proof. Its wisdom isn't in spectacle, but in steadfastness, in its discreet daily magic. Here are some practical and spiritual ways to bring clove's power into your life as a tool for energetic transformation and awakening consciousness. First, treat the ritual as a bridge, not an automatic habit. Don't chew clove like it's just another snack. Before placing it in your mouth, take a moment to look at it. Hold it between your fingers. Notice its texture and aroma. Honor its journey from a flower bud on a living plant to this moment in your hands. This small gesture of attention turns it into a sacred act. Before chewing, take a deep breath. Ask yourself, what do I want to transform today? What do I want to release or awaken within me? Intention is the magician's wand for anyone walking a spiritual path. No plant works if the soul is absent. Awareness is the secret ingredient that awakens the spirit of the medicine. Second, choose the times when you're most receptive. You can chew cloves anytime, but there are moments when their effect is amplified. Right after waking, the body is still between worlds, not fully anchored in the physical and not entirely in the subtle. In that morning in-between state, clove can help set a high, clear vibration for the day ahead. Another powerful moment is at dusk, when the sun is setting and the day's energy shifts. At that time, clove can act as a purifier, clearing away the mental clutter gathered throughout the day. Third, listen to your body's messages. While clove is safe, potent, and used for centuries, it doesn't affect everyone in the same way. Some people feel a gentle inner warmth, others experience emotional openness, and some notice more vivid dreams. Pay attention to what your body and mind are telling you. These are the soul's subtle ways of responding to the plant. If you feel any discomfort, ease back on the amount. If you feel more open, pay attention to what's unfolding within you. The point isn't to expect it to cure you, but to notice how it supports you in healing from within. Fourth, pair it with practices that enhance its power. Clove is an activator. You can boost its effects by combining it with deep, conscious breathing, silent or mantra-based meditation, visualizing cleansing fire, or reading something that nourishes your spirit. Journaling for self-reflection can be powerful too. This isn't just a supplement, it's a natural guide, and when used in the right context, it can open more doors than you expect. In short, it's not only about chewing, it's about creating a sacred dialogue between you and the forces of the earth. A small act done with reverence can become a doorway to a new version of yourself. Throughout this journey, we've gone into the hidden heart of a small dried flower. We've explored its sacred history, its inner alchemy, and its connection to the most subtle layers of being. But beyond all explanations, one truth remains. The real power isn't in the clove. It's in your willingness to awaken. Yes, chewing 2 cloves a day can help digestion, strengthen the immune system, and freshen your breath. But when done with presence and reverence, it does something more. It reminds you that you live in a living temple, and everything you put into your body feeds not just your cells, but also your energy, your spirit, and your vibrational field. Clove isn't a magic pill or a shortcut. It's a spark, a seed of fire that, when tended daily, helps you hold a higher, purer, more awakened vibration. And in a world like ours, overflowing with heavy stimuli, empty food, restless thoughts, and chaotic energy, that small spark can be the difference between living on autopilot and walking through life fully awake. Behind its intense aroma, sharp shape, and fiery flavor, clove carries an ancient truth. The sacred doesn't always arrive in grand form. Sometimes what's most sacred hides in the small, the everyday, the simple. And if you're not paying attention, it can pass you by. You choose whether this becomes an empty routine or a transformative ritual. You choose whether clove remains just another spice or becomes a tool to awaken your sleeping energy. Perhaps its greatest gift is bringing you back to yourself, to your fire, your center, your deep and vibrant stillness. Just as the sages of old needed no stone temples to connect with the divine, knowing the real temple was within, you need nothing more than presence, intention, and 2 small cloves. So next time you hold one between your fingers, remember, you're not just chewing a plant, you're sealing a pact. A quiet agreement with the earth, with your soul, with your journey home. May the fire of clove awaken your awareness. May its warmth purify your intentions, and may its presence walk with you toward a life that's more vibrant, more aligned, and more awake.